A 9-year-old boy from Delhi sits on the floor of a New York City library. No friends, no money, immigrant family barely surviving, reading every book he can get his hands on until closing time. And then he walks home, alone. That boy is Naval Ravikant. Fast forward 30 years, he becomes one of the most successful angel investors in the world. Early bets on companies like Uber, Twitter, hundreds of investments, hundreds of millions of dollars. But that's not what makes him interesting. Because Naval doesn't just talk about money. He talks about peace, about happiness, about why the very things people spend their entire lives chasing end up making them miserable. And that's what makes his thinking dangerous. Because once you understand it, you can't go back to seeing the world the same way. Eric Jorgensen spent years collecting Naval's ideas, from tweets, podcasts, interviews, and turned them into one book, The Almanack of Naval Ravikant. I've gone through it more than once, and what you're about to hear is not just a summary. It's a set of rules, an operating system, for how wealth actually works and why happiness has nothing to do with it until it does. So let's start with the first thing most people get completely wrong. Wealth is not what you think. Seek wealth, not money or status. Wealth is having assets that earn while you sleep. Money is how we transfer wealth, and status is your place in the social hierarchy. If I offered you a $500,000 salary right now, would you take it? Most people say yes instantly, no hesitation. And that is exactly the trap, because Naval separates something most people spend their entire lives confusing. He separates three things: money, wealth, and status. And if you don't understand the difference, you end up chasing the wrong game forever. Money is just a tool. It's how we transfer value. You do something useful. Society gives you a token. You exchange it later. That's all money is. Status is different. Status is your position in the social hierarchy. Who's above you? Who's below you? And here's the problem. Status is a zero-sum game. For you to go up, someone else has to go down. It's a game that never ends. And worse, it's a game you can win and still feel empty. But wealth is something else entirely. Wealth is assets that earn while you sleep. Not your salary, not your job title, not how busy you are. Wealth is the factory running at 2 a.m., the code executing while you're offline, the content being consumed while you're asleep, the system that works without you. Because here's the uncomfortable truth. If your income stops the moment you stop working, you don't have wealth. You have a job, and jobs don't scale, they just repeat. Think about it. If you're earning $500,000 a year, but you lose your job tomorrow, what do you actually have? Nothing. But someone who built a small system that quietly generates $5,000 a month without their time is already closer to wealth, even if it doesn't look like it yet. Because time is limited, but systems compound. You will not get rich renting out your time. And once you see that, it changes how you look at everything. Because now the question isn't, how do I earn more? The question becomes, how do I build something that earns without me? And that leads to the real starting point. Because before you build anything, you have to understand what you uniquely bring to the table. Specific knowledge is your superpower. The direction you're heading in matters more than how fast you move. Most people go through life chasing skills that are in demand. They look at what's paying well, what's trending, what seems safe, and they move toward it. On the surface, it makes sense, but it creates a problem. Because when you follow the crowd, you enter a competition you can't win. There will always be someone smarter, faster, more experienced, more connected. And if you're playing the same game as everyone else, you're replaceable. So instead of asking, what skill should I learn? There's a better question. What comes naturally to me that feels difficult to others? That's where everything changes. Because the real advantage is something called specific knowledge. Not what you studied, not what you were trained to do, but what you would have learned anyway, even if no one was paying you. It's the intersection of Your curiosity, your natural wiring, and your life experience, Stokie. And the clearest sign you found it is simple. It feels like play to you, but it looks like work to everyone else. Think about that. There are people obsessed with things most people ignore: markets, design, storytelling, human behavior, technology. They go deeper, not because they have to, but because they want to. And over time, that obsession compounds, because while others are working, they're playing. And eventually, they become so good, no one can compete. Because no one can outcompete you at being you. That's the moat, not degrees, not credentials, authenticity. And today, this matters more than ever, because the internet removed the gatekeepers. You don't need permission anymore. You don't need to be chosen. You can find your audience, build something, and distribute it to the world. But there's a problem. Even if you find your edge, even if you become exceptional at something, you can still stay stuck. Because knowledge alone doesn't create wealth. It needs something else, something that multiplies it. And that's where the game changes again. Leverage changes everything. Learn how to build and learn how to sell. If you can do both, you will be unstoppable. Imagine two people, same intelligence, same work ethic, same skills. One builds something once and it reaches millions. The other builds something manually, one piece at a time. Who wins? Not because they're smarter, but because they're using leverage. Leverage is the force that turns effort into scale, and most people completely underestimate it. Because they're still playing a linear game. Work more hours, earn more money, repeat. But leverage breaks that equation. It allows you to do the work once and get paid over and over again. And there are three types. The first is labor. Other people working for you. It's the oldest form, but also the messiest. Managing people is hard, it's unpredictable, and it doesn't scale cleanly. The second is capital. Money working for you. Investments, assets. This is powerful, but there's a catch. You usually need permission, access, connections. Someone has to trust you with capital first. And then there's the third type, the one that defines this era: code and media. This is where everything changes, because this is permissionless leverage. You don't need approval, you don't need funding, you don't need a team. You just need to create a piece of code, a video, a system. You build it once and it works forever. 1 million people can use it. And it doesn't cost you another second. That's scale. That's asymmetry. And this is why the new creators, entrepreneurs, builders don't look like the old ones. No factories, no massive teams, just systems running in the background, quietly compounding. There's a line that captures this perfectly. An army of robots is freely available. It's just packed in data centers. Use it. And once you see this, your entire approach changes. You stop asking, how do I work more? And start asking, what can I build that works without me? But this comes with a risk, because leverage doesn't just amplify success, it amplifies mistakes. If you're right, you win big, but if you're wrong, you fail at scale. Which means one thing becomes more important than anything else. Not effort, not hustle, not even skill, but judgment. Because in a leveraged world, direction matters more than speed. And that's the next piece most people completely miss. Judgment over hustle. In an age of leverage, one correct decision can win everything. We're living in a culture that glorifies hustle, 80-hour weeks, constant grinding, sleep is optional, push harder, do more. But there's a problem with this mindset, a quiet one, because if your direction is wrong, working harder doesn't fix it. It just gets you to the wrong place, faster. Think of it like a ship, massive engines, full speed, but pointed in the wrong direction. That's not progress. That's acceleration toward a mistake. And most people never question the direction. They pick something early based on safety, expectations, or what everyone else is doing, and then they double down on it for years. More effort, more sacrifice, more time, but never a pause to ask, is this even the right path? Because the truth is, direction matters more than speed, always. Which means the real skill is not how hard you work, it's how clearly you think and how well you choose. There's a simple rule for this. Easy choices, hard life. Hard choices, easy life. You've seen this play out. The easy decision in the moment, stay comfortable, avoid discomfort, delay the hard thing, almost always becomes a harder problem later. The job you stayed in too long, the conversation you avoided, the risk you didn't take, the short-term comfort turns into long-term regret. So there's a better heuristic. When two paths look similar, and one is harder in the short term, choose the harder one. Run uphill, because that's usually the direction that builds something real. But there's a deeper layer here, because even if you choose well, even if you build the right systems, even if you create wealth, you can still end up unhappy. And that's where most people get blindsided, because they assume success will fix that. It doesn't. Desire is a contract with unhappiness. Desire is a contract you make with yourself to be unhappy until you get what you want. Read that slowly. Every time you say, I want this, you're also saying, I won't be fully happy until I get it. And that's how the cycle begins. You chase something, you get it, you feel good briefly, and then the feeling fades and your mind moves on to the next thing, a bigger goal, a better version, something more. And without realizing it, you've signed a new contract. That's the loop. Not because something is wrong with you, but because that's how desire works. It was designed for survival, scarcity, progress. But in a world of abundance, it becomes a trap. Because now there's always something more to want. And the mind never settles. There's a moment that captures this perfectly. You want something so badly, you think about it every day. You imagine how good it will feel. You're convinced this will change everything. And then you get it. And within days, it feels normal. That's not failure. That's the system. So what do? Do you stop wanting things? No, that's not realistic. Instead, you become intentional. You choose your desires carefully because every desire comes with a cost. It creates a direction of suffering. So if you're going to choose one, make sure it's worth it. But there's another layer to this, one that's even more subtle. And that's comparison, jealousy, looking at someone else's life and wanting a piece of it, their success, their lifestyle, their results. But there's a flaw in that thinking because you're not seeing the full picture. If you're not willing to do a wholesale 24/7, 100% swap with who that person is, then there is no point in being jealous. You can't pick and choose. You don't get just the highlights. You get everything, the stress, the trade-offs, the unseen parts. Every life is a complete package. And when you really understand that, jealousy fades because you realize you don't actually want their life. You just want parts of it, and parts aren't available. So where does that leave you? If chasing more doesn't work and comparison doesn't help, what's left? Because removing desire only removes suffering. It doesn't create happiness. So the real question becomes, what actually does? Happiness is a skill. A few years ago, if you asked for a rating, happiness would have been low, not because life was bad, but because something always felt missing. Fast forward, same world, same external reality, completely different internal state. And the shift came from one realization. Happiness isn't something you wait for. It's something you train, like fitness, like nutrition, like any other skill. Most people treat happiness like an outcome, something that arrives when everything else falls into place, when the money is right, when the relationship is right, when life finally looks the way it's supposed to. But that moment never comes, because the mind always finds something else to fix, something else to want. So the target keeps moving, and you keep chasing. There's a different way to look at it, not as something you add, but something you uncover. Happiness is what remains when the feeling that something is missing disappears. It's not excitement. It's not constant pleasure. It's quieter than that. It's the absence of restlessness, that low-level tension in the background, the voice that says, not this, something else. Most of the time, the mind isn't here. It's somewhere ahead, planning, optimizing, worrying, or somewhere behind, replaying, regretting, analyzing. But happiness lives in neither. It lives here, and presence is a skill, something you practice, not perfectly, but consistently. There are a few simple ways to train it. Not complicated, just deliberate movement. Taking care of the body, because the body and mind are not separate systems. If one breaks, the other follows. Stillness. Learning to sit and watch your thoughts without reacting to every one of them. Seeing the patterns. Seeing how the mind creates problems and then tries to solve them. Letting go of comparison, not by forcing it, but by understanding it, seeing through it. Choosing desires carefully, not eliminating them, but being aware of the cost, because every desire comes with a timeline of dissatisfaction. And then there's awareness, moving through your day without constantly labeling everything, good, bad, better, worse, just experiencing it as it is. There's a line that captures this perfectly. Peace is happiness at rest. Happiness is peace in motion. And that's the shift, from chasing moments to building a baseline. Because once that baseline changes, everything else changes with it. And suddenly, success doesn't feel like the goal anymore. It becomes a byproduct. The game you're actually playing. By now, you've seen the pieces: wealth, leverage, judgment, desire, happiness. But there's one question underneath all of it, a quiet one. What game are you playing? Because most people never ask that. They just inherit a game from parents, from society, from the people around them. And they start running faster, harder, trying to win without ever questioning the rules. But there are really two very different games. The first one is loud, visible, addictive. It runs on comparison. Who's ahead? Who's behind? Who has more? Who looks better? It's the game where the scoreboard never stops moving. And even when you win, it doesn't feel like winning for long, because someone else is always ahead. Always. The second game is quieter. You don't always see it. There's no public scoreboard, no constant comparison, just one question. Am I creating something that genuinely makes life better for other people? Because when you are, something shifts. You're no longer taking value, you're creating it. And that changes the entire dynamic. Now it's not you versus everyone else. It's you working with reality, building something useful, something people actually want. And that's where this principle comes in. You will get rich by giving society what it wants at scale. Not what sounds impressive, not what gets attention, but what actually helps. What people willingly choose, what solves something real. And here's the part most people miss. When you're working on something like that, something you're genuinely interested in, it doesn't feel like force. It feels like pull. You go deeper, you stay longer, you improve faster. Not because you're trying to win, but because you're engaged. And over time, that becomes an unfair advantage. Because while others are pushing themselves to keep going, you don't have to. And then something even more unexpected happens. The more you focus on the process, the less attached you become to the outcome. You're not chasing anymore. You're building, exploring, refining. And in that state, your best work shows up. Clearer decisions, better ideas, less noise, more signal. So the game changes from how do I get ahead to what am I building that actually matters? From what do I need to feel complete to what happens when I stop needing more? And once you see that, really see it, everything gets simpler, quieter, more intentional, because you're no longer playing a game you didn't choose. You're playing one that actually leads somewhere. A kid sitting on the floor of a library, no money, no network, no clear path, just time and curiosity. That's where this started, not with resources, but with perspective. And over time, that perspective became a system. Not just for making money, but for building a life that actually works. And if you strip everything down, you don't need all the complexity. You just need a few things done right. Listening is good, but action is better. So here are the 3 most actionable ideas. First, stop chasing money. Start building something that works without you. If your income depends on your time, you're stuck in a loop. Break it, even in small ways. Create something once that pays you more than once. Second, find the thing that feels like play to you and take it seriously. That's your edge. That's where you go deeper than everyone else. Not because you're disciplined, but because you're interested. And interest outlasts motivation. Third, be careful what you want, because every desire comes with a hidden cost: time, attention, peace. So instead of chasing everything, choose one direction and let the rest go. And if you get even these three right, something shifts. You stop reacting to life and start designing it quietly, intentionally, on your own terms. So don't just watch this and move on. Pick one idea, just one, and apply it today, because nothing in this video matters until it shows up in your life. If you want more breakdowns like this, not just summaries, but ideas you can actually use, subscribe. That's what this channel is about. I'll see you in the next one.